Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Reverend Lisa Sargent. I'm a chaplain at the local Kaiser Hospital, and it's my honor to be here with you this afternoon to lift up the life of Christine Colvin and how she touched our world. We're arriving from a lot of different places. Some of us on a plane, by car, by train, by foot. I don't know about you all, but I left hail at my house and arrived actually through a rainbow to get to these middle-of-the-road clouds. So wherever you have come from, welcome. And however you knew Chris, welcome. We come together from all of our different places and in all of our different ways because we share one thing in common, and that's that our lives were all touched by Chris's life. So as we arrive, may we come together in grief, but find peace, maybe in pain, but find comfort, and maybe in sorrow, but find hope together. Would you please join me in a starting prayer? When I talked with Chris in the hospital, she told me a lot about her faith, so I will pray today according to her Episcopalian faith, but if her faith did not match your faith, feel free to take my words and make them useful and meaningful to you in whatever way you will. Gracious and loving God, creator of all life, may we feel your loving presence here today as we come together to say farewell to Chris. You have given us life, a circle of days. You have made it so generations follow generations, so that life endures, circle repeating circle. May your Holy Spirit be here to guide us through this time of transition and letting go. Bless us with the understanding that your love is everlasting. In the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, amen. There is so much that can be said about Chris. It's been my honor to hear some stories about her, which is just the tip of the iceberg that I'll share. Born December 28th, 1947, to parents John and Mary Entwistle. Raised in a singing and sailing family in Alameda with her sister Millie, who could not be here in person but is here in spirit. Married several times to Wyatt, Robert, Chuck, and to Don, twice. Mother to two daughters, Cynthia and Margie, and stepdaughter, April. Around her were close friends, like Mark. A sailing family, including Will. And animal companions, cats first, then dogs, that she loved throughout her life. She spoke to me of love for my girls and my grandchildren. Hours were spent working in accounting, bookkeeping, and bartending. She enjoyed poker, watching bull riding, orchids, it's a juxtaposition there, watching bull riding and tending orchids, gardening, and growing things. She loved music, piano, violin, going to concerts, and singing along with Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band. Greater than her love for any of these things was her passion for sailing. In addition to human friends, the boats were her companions. The Peggy, the Madeline, the Penguin, the Melinda Lee, and I'm sure more whose names I missed. Years of life were spent right here on the Delta, where she found great joy in the water. Isaac Dennison said, "The cure for anything is water, tears, sweat, or the sea." She lived a hard, fast life with its ups and downs, some stormy seasons, not always easy. A strong personality that lived passionately and loved fiercely. She lived with faith in God given initially to her by her parents, and her favorite hymn was in the garden. He walks with me, and he talks with me, and he tells me I am his own. She loved later years of time with her 6 grandchildren, time with and caring for her parents, time traveling, time socializing at the yacht club. I'd like to share a reading that I shared in the hospital in Chris's last days called "Gone from My Sight" by Henry Van Dyke. I am standing upon the seashore. A ship at my side spreads her white sails to the moving breeze and starts for the blue ocean. She is an object of beauty and strength, I stand and watch her until, at length, she hangs like a speck of white cloud where the sea and the sky come to mingle together. Then someone at my side says, "There, she is gone." Gone where? Gone from my sight, that is all. She is just as large in mast, hull, and spar as she was when she left my side. And she is just as able to bear her load of living freight to her destined port. Her diminished size is in me, not in her. And just at the moment when someone says, "There, she is gone," there are other eyes watching her coming, other voices ready to take up the glad shout, "Here she comes." And that is dying. I'd like to invite Cynthia and Margie up to say a few words.
Hi, family. Before we begin, we wanted to mention that we have created an online memory page of our mother at legacy.com. You can find more information in the pamphlets we provided for you today, and would love any stories or pictures you would like to share. We also brought one of her latest passions, which was growing orchids. Her husband Don and Will brought all of them here, and they're offering them up for you to take with you. I told Don when we walked in, "But you can only take one home if you'll keep it alive." He says, "Then none of them will be taken." We also have a guest book. It's back on that table. When you have a moment to sign it, we would love for you to do so. Now the hard part. Yeah, here we go. Thank you for coming to honor our mother today. For those of you that don't know us, we are her daughters, Cynthia and Margie. We're so grateful that you are all here today to remember our mother and to celebrate her life with us. I had to type this up because I knew this wouldn't be hard, so I apologize for reading my words instead of just looking at your beautiful faces. But as I look around the room, I see so many friends and family that have brought us through the years. And the love on your faces is really touching. And I know how much she meant to you, and I know how much she meant to us. If you flew in from out of town or drove a long way today to be here, we just want you to know how much that deeply touches us and how much it means to us. Our Aunt Millie has been speaking to us and writing to us about their childhood and helping us prepare for today's memorial. We are recording this service for her and a few other family members that cannot be with us in person today. We love you, Millie. Our mother, Christine, was born on December 28th, 1947. She was the second daughter, obviously you already heard this, to John and Mary. We knew them as Dee Dee and Bumpa. She had a big sister, Millie McCoy. They lived in 8 different homes, but no matter where they lived, our grandparents had a way of making every home warm, loving, and welcoming. It was always home, as Millie said, and it was full of hugs and kisses. We can both remember sitting around our grandparents' round table having breakfast with our 2 cousins, Barbara and Karen, where pancakes and waffles were always available, hot breakfast, never cold. This was the young home life Mother and Aunt Millie had. They both took swimming lessons, went to camp, sang in the choir, took ballet lessons, attended church. Millie told me that they memorized the Lord's Prayer, and their favorite out of the Bible was the 23rd Psalm. When they were younger, our grandmother taught them how to play chess. She told me that they taught them how to play corner catch, and somebody's going to have to tell me what the heck that game is, because I have no idea. They also loved to sing, if you knew this family, and they loved to play piano. My grandmother wrote musicals, and at one point they starred in her musical Aloha Stranger up in Washington. My fondest memories of my mom were the times we spent sailing or on the water. She told us how she preferred to be on a river, not the ocean or a lake, but the river. It is where she sailed her boat, and it was always her happy place. We had many, many summers traveling to the Delta as little kids and going to an island called Lost Isle, where of course we found monkeys and peacocks to bother. We would go there with our grandparents, our Aunt Millie, our cousins Barbara and Karen, and those are some really great memories. While she loved being on the water and sailing, there was another facet of her life that involved playing cards and backgammon. This was during the time she was married to Chuck Papazian, a professional backgammon player. One of the backgammon tournaments Mom went to was hosted by Lucille Ball. I remember Mom returning home from this tournament, and I loved hearing the stories that she told about meeting Lucy and sitting down to dinner with her after the tournament. She had won a trophy. I'm pretty sure Chuck beat Lucy at backgammon. Artie and Nancy over here can tell me if I'm right. I loved listening to her stories, and to sit across the table from such an icon was a big memory for Mom. She and Chuck took my sister and I to Europe one summer for tournaments in Monte Carlo and London. There was a lot of joy in music and fun times in our home during that time. But this period of her life also came with a price. I believed she missed the calmness of the river. I believed she missed the calmness of being with her parents. I believe she missed her sailboat. So in 1983, she moved to Ileton and she bought a home near her parents. Later, when she married Don, they built a house on the water with a dock and a slide. This was the home that she loved the most, being right on the water and having her sailboat in her backyard. Besides sailing, Mom had another passion, and that was being a grandparent. I remember calling her and telling her that I was pregnant, and she was so excited that she drove out so that she could see me. And she came running up to me with these big open arms, and I thought she was coming to me with a hug. And instead, she went right for my stomach and grabbed my stomach and started talking to the baby. She loved talking to her grandbabies long before they were born. And once they were born, she just loved to rock them and hold them and sing songs to them. Mom and her husband, Don, spent a lot of time with both my girls, going to their sporting events, taking them camping and fishing and shark fishing, and watching their ballet recitals. One of Mom's favorite stories about my youngest daughter, Melanie, was they were standing in her house, and Melanie was going up to my mom going, "Luna in the witchin', Luna in the witchin'." And my mom was looking at her going, "What is she saying?" And eventually they realized she was saying balloon in the kitchen. At her home on the river, Mom enjoyed finding ways for her grandkids to have fun. Melanie loved to fish, and she would send her down to the dock with a sandwich and a pole where she sat for hours patiently waiting for a fish. While Melanie fished, Emily and April would be in the paddle boat that Dawn had found. They would be cruising around the little cove in that paddle boat, talking non-stop. And so Mom nicknamed the boat the Chatty Cathy for the girls that couldn't stop talking when they were in it. My mother left me with a passion for singing, and if you're going to sing, do it as loud as you can. Really loud, but hopefully in a car, because her singing could scare you sometimes if you weren't ready for it. She encouraged me to become a teacher, to help children. She taught me to love life, make friends, go on adventures, take risks, swim in the water, and be on the water whenever you can. And most importantly, to continue to follow a spiritual path. She would always remind me to find time to sit quietly by myself and breathe whenever I could, and never to forget that wherever I go, her famous words, God goes before you. My sister Cynthia is going to share.
Thank you, everybody, for coming today. It really warms my heart to have you. When I think of my mother, I think of many things that I loved about her. Her laugh, her ability to weave a story, not always true, slightly embellished. Her love of the water, sailing, music, and of course, politics, family members, friends, orchids, and animals. Hers is a very long and twisting journey, so I struggle to find a way to tell you about her. This is from my heart, and it is just my perception of this amazing woman. I hope you will share with me your stories and your perception. I think of her through the years like the seasons. In the fall, If you knew my mom, then you knew she loved a party, especially if it included music and dancing. One Halloween, I decided to have a party in Pennsylvania with about 50 of my friends, and about 20 of them were children, including her grandson. I hired a DJ and Mom flew out to attend. She dressed as a flapper. She quickly made friends with my friends. She danced the night away, and we had the best time. My friends remember her dancing and sharing stories and laughing because my mom was a party. In the winter, when we were small, the winter holidays always included decorating a beautiful live Christmas tree. For Christmas Eve, we would attend midnight mass to sing Alleluia and always hit the high note. For Christmas, we baked cookies or an upside-down pineapple cake, and she taught me how to light candles, bring out the china and the silver, and have friends and family come together. On Christmas Day, after opening presents, it would be time to dress up. Dressing up with my mom was a favorite activity. I loved watching her put on her makeup. She was beautiful and always let me chatter away while she'd be getting ready. Once we were all dolled up, Margie and me, we'd head to Belvedere, to Uncle Ronald's home. There we'd have a family dinner, and there was singing around the piano, laughter and stories, politics, and more laughter. Over the years, she liked to bring friends to meet her family, and some of them became unofficial members. Mark, you know you are family. Later, after I'd moved to New York and started a family of my own, she'd fly to the east to see us. My husband, Stephen, over there, and I would throw her a dinner party. And she loved being included and getting to know my in-laws and our close friends. Mostly, her biggest reason to travel 3,000 miles was to see and enjoy her grandson, Joshua. Sitting over here. We'd go see the big tree in the city and enjoy the windows of Bergdorf's. It was a delight, and she always made Christmas feel special. I loved staying up late with her and talking with her. We shared our lives every Christmas. Spring, for my mother, would mean gardening. She loved learning how to grow things. She would spend time researching and talking to people kind of endlessly about their gardens and then her garden. Throughout her life, she planted roses, petunias, impatiens, fuchsias, and hydrangeas. Very recently, she found to plant and learn and love orchids. One might call it an obsession. Her last text to my son, Josh, were the pictures of her greenhouse she'd set up in her bathroom with updates on the shoots and the roots. I can't talk about the spring without telling you about Easter. Margie and I would always awake to a candy-filled basket at the end of our beds, and after church we'd make a trip to Belvedere for Easter dinner. She loved that we'd enjoy a leg of lamb at a long table with mint jelly. While the food was being prepared, we'd have the legendary Easter egg hunt. Everyone brought at least a dozen colored hard-boiled eggs, which would be hidden throughout the small garden. My grandmother would play the piano while the family sang, and Dee Dee loved having my mother's strong soprano voice take lead. In the summer, which I think was my mom's favorite season for summer, was summer. While growing up, we took road trips. We'd start while it was still dark with an egg sandwich wrapped in a napkin for breakfast, and once on the road, she would turn on the radio and we would sing loudly to all the songs blasting through the tiny speakers. The three of us would talk about things that came to mind as the road ahead widened in front of us. And if it got hot, because back then cars did not have air conditioning, we would roll down the windows, and once I remember sticking my feet out the window while she sat behind the wheel in a bikini. Each summer involved a road trip to either Bend, Oregon for a family reunion at my Aunt Millie's to see grandparents, great aunt, and of course my wonderful cousins Karen and Barbara. Or later taking train rides to Lake Bay, Washington, where my grandparents had retired. We also traveled to Europe with my stepfather Chuck, which he already talked about, so I won't go in there. No summer was complete without taking a swim in the cool green and sparkling water of the Sacramento River. When my grandparents Dee Dee and Bumpa had moved back to California and settled in a small Delta town called Ileton, my mother felt the pull to be both near her parents and be on the river. She had then married Don, and the two of them built her dream home, from a tiny cottage on the river to a beautiful multi-tiered home with multiple decks and, as my sister said, a view to her sailboat. The house also had an apartment on the first floor where she was able to move our grandparents to live out their final years. It was designed so that Dee Dee could sit and watch the sunrise on the river. There was a small deck where my grandparents could drink their evening cocktails, enjoying the swallows and the ducks. And during that time in her life, she grew spiritually. Margie and I agree. She was her absolute best person during the years of service that she and Dawn cared for my aging grandparents. It would not be summer if we didn't sail. From the Peggy, the Melinda Lee, and then finally the Madeline, sailing was in her blood. She loved teaching people to sail, and literally anyone who expressed interest in going out on the river with her, she was happy to take a sail with. Some of my favorite memories will be all the years of seeing my son Josh at the tiller with my mother encouraging him and telling him where to go and what to do. I was so grateful to her good friend Will, who in her final years was able to go with her to sail down to the bay to watch her beloved baseball team, the Giants. Those are the seasons. Each year was a little different, and yet there were always common threads throughout our lives, from plants to sailing, and most especially her love of friends and family, her daughters, and especially of her grandchildren. She was a spiritual woman, and we talked openly about God and about life after death. She's definitely in this room now. To quote her first grandchild, Emily, heaven just got a whole lot louder. Rock on, Mama.
Well, speaking of rock and roll. So if you knew my mom, and if you really hung out with her, you knew every song that Bob Seger ever wrote. One night, my husband came home, and he told me that he had gotten a ticket to go see some guy named Alto Reed, and they were going to be playing in Napa. And I said, oh, you're going to have to get some more tickets, because there's no way we can go do that without Mom going with us. So he quickly, my husband right there, Scott, Shuey's his nickname, Shuey went and got some more tickets. It was a night that she constantly talked about, reflected on, and loved. We went and listened to Alto Reed. Afterwards, Shuey knew the hookup of where Alto Reed was going to be hanging out, so we drove Mom there. She hung out with him all night. She had a blast, let me tell you.
So did he.
And so did he. He kept hanging out with my mom, let me tell you. I think his fiance was getting a little mad at my mom at some point. They had the best time. And that picture of her and Alto Reed sat on her piano, and it still sits there today. So on that note, even though I feel like it'd be more appropriate to sing a Bob Seger song, she did have a final request. And of course we want to honor that request. Her request was for us to sing In the Garden. It's her favorite hymn. She would sing it often. Her other request was a little bit tricky. She wanted Cynthia to sing it by herself.
Sorry, Mom. Once again, I rebel.
Of course, we could always use Aunt Millie to help us out with this song, so I know she's going to sing it along with us when she hears this. Cynthia's husband, Stephen, who plays guitar beautifully, is going to play acoustic guitar. My sweet daughter, Emily, is going to put the lyrics up, but if you can read the tiny font on your program, it's there as well. If you can't, just do the best you can. So, lyrics, okay, right here.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding. We'll wing it. It's all right. We're among friends.
We're among friends. Yeah. And please join in. This isn't meant to be a solo of just the two of them.
The chorus. I want you to join
Okay,
in.
join into the chorus. We'll try. But if we don't do well on the other parts, feel free to join in.
And no clapping.
And no clapping.
No rhythmic clapping.
She would love the silliness of this. I come to the garden alone while the dew is still on the roses, and the voice I hear falling on my ear, the Son of God discloses, and he walks with me, and he talks with me, and he tells me I am his own, and the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known. He speaks, and the sound of his voice is so sweet, the birds hush their singing, and the melody that he gave to me within my heart is ringing, and he walks with me, and he talks with me, and he tells me I am his own, and the joy we share as I tarry there, none other has ever known. I stayed in the garden with him, though the night all around me is falling, but he bids me go through the voice of woe. His voice to me is calling, and he walks with me, and he talks with me, and he tells me I am his own, and the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known, none other has ever known.
I think you did your mom proud. Well, I have shared a few things, and Cynthia and Margie have shared more. But the richness of Chris's life is held in all of your minds and your stories. And I would invite anyone who would like to come up to share a story, a memory, how you knew Chris, how your lives passed, something that'll make us laugh, something that's meaningful, whatever you might like to share. This is the time where we do that together.
Hi everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Emily and I'm Chris's first grandchild. I'm gonna try not to cry. My Nana was larger than life. She laughed, she lived, and she loved hard. We called her Nana Woo Woo because of her dog Archie and because of her laugh that filled the room. She taught me so many important life lessons: how to swim, how to sing, how to sail, how to play piano, how to drive a golf cart, how to kindly let others merge onto Highway 80, how to yell at boaters going too fast down the river, how to make apple pie, and how to voice your thoughts and opinions as a strong woman in this world. She also taught me some of my first words. At the age of 2, I walked around a garden admiring all the beautiful plants before stopping to examine one plant in particular, and I exclaimed a phrase I had heard my Nana Woo say many times before. "What the hell is that?" I will always remember the summers Melanie, April, and I spent on the river, swimming off the dock until we could barely pull ourselves up the ladder. Trying to convince Nana I had found a crab in the river, she never did believe me. Watching the Olympics and so much tennis, racing around the island, Nana in the golf cart and us on our bikes. I'll always have a scar on my leg for that one. Weekend girls' trips on her sailboat, and quietly sitting in the dark living room watching a summer lightning storm over the Delta. Yes, even Nana was quiet. And of course, driving down the levee roads in her gold Suburban with the loud exhaust, windows down, breeze through her hair, singing Baby Likes to Rocket at the top of our lungs. She was never really that same Nana I grew up with after Dee Dee and Bumba passed away, and I know how much she missed them and how happy she must be to be reunited with them. And all of us down here will never really be the same without Nana. But as many of us have seen and felt since she passed, she is all around us and with us each passing day until we see her again. Thank you.
I don't know exactly. Tell me if I'm loud enough.
Good.
Okay. I am Margaret, otherwise known formerly as Muffy. There were 8 cousins of Jack, my mother, Mary, Ronald, and, George died when he was young. But there were 5 adult children of our grandparents, and we were 8 cousins of them. I was the oldest, Millie was next, Chris was next, then came Rob, Jim, Maggie, and Rob, Jim, Mary Liz, Maggie, and Trisha, my sister. Anyway, so we were always the cousins, and as somebody said, we spent a lot of time in Belvedere for family celebrations, Easter egg hunts, and Christmas, and all that kind of stuff. We had a lovely time together, all there. We were a bunch of wild kids, I'd say, ranging all over everywhere. So anyway, well, then as time went on, Chris and Millie and I kind of were the ones who hung together because we were around the same age, and the next was 3.5 or more years younger. Anyway, so I have some funny memories, mainly of our early teenage years, and they're really quite amazing when I think of how young we were. I probably was 14 or 15. Millie would have been 14, Chris 13. She may have even been 12. And I spent time in Alameda at their house with Mary Jo and Uncle Jack, their parents. And they always went to bed at about 8 or 8 at night. And the three of us would then immediately sneak out of the house. And we'd usually be gone until 2 or 3 or 4 in the morning. I don't remember how it was that Millie and Chris knew all kinds of people, mostly guys, and mostly older. But there was always a car somewhere, and we would go off, and there would be parties, there would be whatever. I remember a couple of specific things. One was we went to the Oakland Hills one night for a Hells Angels party. And I mean, really, we were like 15, 14, and 13, and I have no idea how this came about. And I was pretty innocent. I guess they had a little more experience with the wild times in Alameda. Anyway, so we're at this party, and Chris and Millie and I together, and then I think Millie got separated, and all of a sudden the cops raided the party. And so somehow Chris and I managed to escape, and we got away, and got away from the whole thing. I had not remembered this, but Millie told me recently that, oh yeah, you guys, I turn around and you're gone, and I get arrested by the cops and am taken to the state cop station and have to, my parents had to come and pick me up. I don't remember if we managed to, if she squealed on us, if we got back without their knowing that what we had done. I don't remember that. But anyway, so there was another night I remember sneaking out with them, and Millie had a boyfriend whose name was Red, and he was like 20, and we were driving in one of those old American boats, 120 miles an hour on Hegenberger Road. Now, Hegenberger Road was desolate. There was nothing there. There was no airport. There was nothing. And anyway, I just remember being a little uneasy, but whatever. It's amazing to me when I think of how young we were, that we were doing all this, and it was, very innocent, actually. My final story is of Chris and me on my 16th birthday. We were in Belvedere. My uncle, by then our grandparents were dead. My uncle was there, but he went out to dinner with friends. My mother was there probably because it was my birthday, and but she went up to visit my aunt. And Chris and I were left alone. Well, we got into my uncle's liquor cabinet. And I had never, ever drunk before. Or if I had, it would be in a sip or something like that. I got totally drunk. Chris was not. But, either she held her liquor better or she didn't drink as much as I did. I don't know. At any rate, my uncle came home, and he saw me, and he said to Chris, you have to take her in the room and make sure she doesn't come out when her mother comes home, because her mother can't see this. Well, so Chris did, and apparently my mother came home, and I realized she was there, and I am trying to get out of the room to go out and tell her how terrible I was and how sorry I was. And Chris is doing everything she can to keep me in there, and to be honest with you, I don't remember what happened. I don't remember if I managed to get out or not. But anyway, so those are... We had kind of a wild time when we were very young, but it all worked out all right. Anyway, so thank you.
Hi, I'm Mary Liz. I'm cousin number 6. So there's a couple of, one of my first memories, not memories of Chris, we had all the time. Easter on the lagoon or in Belvedere was wonderful. We had a great bunch of people around us. And this was like, I think this might have been Thanksgiving. And Margaret, Millie, and Chris wanted to go up to the Foster Freeze or one of those places in San Rafael to pick up boys, they said. And so my mom and Auntie Peggy and Mary Joy said, yeah, you can go, but you have to take Mary Liz. Well, I'm Rob and Jimmy in between me and them. And Chris was kind of like, oh, no. But, so what Chris came up with is they sat me on 2 phone books and one other book, I don't know what it was. That way I was at least tall enough, because I've always been the shortest one. I was tall enough to not look like a kid. I have no idea, what was I, 3? No. I was 10 or 11, I think. And that way I was tall enough. So they put up with me. I said I was in awe of all these things they did. And it was pretty funny, but you kind of had to be there. The other one that I have fond memories of was at their place on the Delta, looking out over the water, and she was teaching Emmy to sing. And they were at the piano, both of them were sitting there, and Millie's playing, Emmy's singing, and all of a sudden Chris goes, now belt it! And she did. She absolutely did. I just was like, okay, that's, yeah, because Chris had a very distinctive voice. And, but you know, they didn't live near us. Margaret, Tricia, Rob, Jimmy, we all lived close together. But so we didn't always see them. But she was my cousin. So, and there's a lot of interesting times, but they would be boring to other people than family members. So, thank you.
I can't believe it. You girls haven't changed at all. Emily and Melanie and Emily were, I remember them when they were in the bellies. Anyway, I met Chris here in the Delta. I moved here in 1986, and she became my best friend. Actually, I moved on the island in 1986. 1993, I moved to Vieira's. I moved here in 1986, and it was for fishing that we got here, and she loved the river. Met her during the flood of 86. Yeah, that was the first flood is when I moved here. And this California Striped Bass Association is what we were involved with. My husband had a fishing business. The Fisher's been around forever. And that's how it was all about the river. This was home. And when I moved on the island, it really became home because that's when I got to be really close friends with Chris. We were both brought up in the Bay Area. I went to school in Alameda. She went to school in Alameda. Her parents lived in Alameda. We both had 2 daughters about the same age. We both got granddaughters about the same age. So we had a very lot in common. So yeah, we were the best friends here in the Delta. To this day, I mean, it was Wimbledon. We always talked to each other. If we hadn't talked before, we were talking to each other every day about tennis when the opens were going on, who was doing what, and was our man Federer working out or what? We loved him. Anyway, I was shocked when I heard it. We had gone to dinner a couple of months ago, decided that we were going to start. Well, I lost my husband a couple of years ago. So after that, she goes, we need to get together and do things together. So, you know, so we did. We went to dinner here the last time, and we had a great time. It was, you know, and all these stories are so memorable when you guys all talking about them and go, I've heard them all. And your grandparents, I mean John, Mr. Magoo going to the mailbox every day with his little bag when she had him at the house. Me taking care of Archie and Stella, driving the golf cart back to the field so they could run. It was awesome. Anyway, miss her. I have no idea how you feel, but yeah, it was a shock. But we all get older, and she went the way I want to go. If he's gonna call, take me right away. Okay.
I know there must be more stories. There are.
So Chris was my mother-in-law. So I'm Cynthia's husband. Josh is our kid. And I just, more than anything, I just want to express gratitude to Chris for the friendship that she showed to Josh. We talked about her teaching kids how to do things. And I remember Josh, I think I wasn't on that trip that time, but they had called back east, and Josh, we were so excited because she had let you drive the golf cart. And you were, I think you were probably about maybe 5 or something. And you were just so, maybe he was a little older than that, but we had been trying to get him interested in, in driving and things like that. And my dad had tried, but his idea of teaching Josh to drive was to stick him between him and the steering wheel when he was like a baby. And just let him putting his hands on the wheel and letting him honk the horn and stuff. And Chris she really stepped up, and she also taught you how to drive the boat, as you mentioned before. And I think we have these beautiful photographs of, and she was, she and I didn't always see eye to eye, but I think I'm just left with that gratitude, and she and my dad were really great friends too. They had this really kind of improbable but really intense friendship too. And he passed in late October, and so I know that they're hanging out too at this point. Just again, just so grateful for everything she brought to our family.
Hi, I'm Nancy, and this is my husband Artie. And everything that everybody's saying is very true to life of Chris. She was the wild one and the party animal, which we experienced many parties with her. I came to California and met Artie in 1975, and Chris was my first friend. And we were very different, being from New York and Chris being from California, but we merged our lessons and our sense of love of life. It was very well blended between the two of us. And Mark was a part of this also. Yeah. Chris taught me many, many valuable lessons which I carry to this day. One was I became a mother in 1980, and she is my daughter's godmother. And she made all the receiving blankets because she was a wonderful seamstress. And she gave Amy her first bath. She taught me how to bathe a baby. I was 34 at the time, but Chris became a mother at 16, and she had all this experience to share with me. On the wild side of it, we stopped partying in 1980. Well, I stopped partying because being a new mother. But we would still have our cup of tea in the morning, which is another thing that she turned me on to. I had been a coffee drinker, but Chris would say, we have to have a cup of tea, an English tea, with cream and sugar. And I loved her family. I loved the girls. A matter of fact, Artie and I had a hard patch of time before we had our daughter. And I moved in with them for the 3 months that I was in California and got to know the girls really well. And they're beautiful, as everybody knows. And they have Chris's soul and Mary Joy's and John's beautiful personalities and love of God. And it's been a wonderful experience for me, just knowing Chris and having her as a friend.
Hi, everybody. The first thing I want to say is, when I met Chris around 1971, before Nancy I even knew Nancy, and a group of us would play softball together in Berkeley, in the park, and I got to know her, and there's no whitewashing. The 70s were a very crazy period for a lot of us. I suspect, maybe not, but there was a lot of partying, as was alluded to, going on in those days. And I would see Cynthia and Marjorie, and the takeaway I got was, if you give your children a tremendous amount of genuine love, they're going to land on their feet. And that's what happened. Just listening to Cynthia and Marjorie today, just incredibly impressive how they've turned out. And, there's a lot of stories. There's many, many stories that maybe sometime when we're all together we could go over there. Some of them might have to be censored a little bit. But when you look back at them, Chris really was larger than life in a lot of ways. She was just an exceptional woman, and just a character in the best possible way. In the best possible way. We don't have enough characters in our lives that we could reflect on like we think of Chris now. So just wanted to represent the male species up here. So anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Hello, for those who don't know me, I'm Melanie. I'm granddaughter number 2, the Fisher granddaughter. A lot of good memories that I have of Nana Woo Woo growing up is always definitely, she always made sure I had a fishing pole in my hand, that I had a lunch, that I had bait. She would give me like a $10 bill, $20 bill so I could ride my bike down to the store, get a can of worms, and then get some candy to sit on the dock for hours on end. Anytime I did that, I made sure to always bring her back a piece of candy for her, and that was usually an Abba Zaba bar. So if you guys ever see those, I would always bring her back one of them, and she would always tell my mom, whenever I did that, she's like, Melanie is so thoughtful. Anytime I'd give her money to go get worms, she would always bring me back a piece of candy for myself and things like that. So, and I would, because she was Nana Woo Woo. So I learned a lot of life skills on her dock, learning how to fish. She taught me how to play backgammon and Texas Hold'em, and she always told me you have to have a good poker face if you're going to play Texas Hold'em professionally. So I was like, all right, Nana. She was just a force to be reckoned with. She was there for every single volleyball, basketball game. All my friends on my teammate would know exactly whose grandmother she was. She was the loudest, and if the crowd was too quiet, she would get the crowd going and cheering and things like that. So So I love her to death, and I will always have so many favorite memories coming out here to the Delta with her. I know she touched so many lives with how many people are here today. She was a force to be reckoned with, and I know when it comes to our days and things like that, that she'll throw the biggest party, my dance, honky tonk for all of us to come and celebrate her with. So thank you guys for coming.
I'm Mario, I'm a friend of the family's, and man, I had a lot of experience. And you mentioned that Melanie, and she was probably this small. And I remember that I was down there, and I don't know why I was down there, but Chris was cooking, and Melanie kept bugging Grandma. Grandma, I want to go fishing. I want to go fishing. And Grandma could watch her and cook at the same time. And Chris had this bright idea to volunteer me. And she goes, I bet Mario will want to go fishing with you. And I go, what? She goes, yeah. I go, okay. So she didn't bother. She grabbed my hand, and we're down the dock, man, and we're fishing, And I'm watching her fishing, and all of a sudden, and she get this big old bite, and the pole went down, and I'm trying to watch her that she don't go over the dock, and she lost this fish, and she was seeing this face on her, and I thought she was gonna cry, and I said, oh my God, so I thought crying, I go, you know what? I'm gonna tell you right now, that had to be one of the biggest fish ever, And she looked, she goes, yeah, huh? Yeah. And I said, yes, it is, yeah. And then I asked her, who tied that? Who tied your hook together? She goes, my grandpa. I go, oh, okay. Because it didn't bust, it undone. Yeah. Thank you, Grandpa. But, so Chris was watching us, and she's watching me do all this move and stuff, She goes, what happened? And I told her she caught the biggest fish, And you know what? She goes, oh man, she loves you, Mario. And I said, I bet. But you know what? I remember those times, and we had good times. And thank you for all of you. I love all our family. That's all I got.
I'll say a wee bit. So I can't say that Chris and I are exactly on the same wavelengths most of the time, but three things I remember. Oh, I'm cousin something or other. Three things I remember. Whenever she appeared at either 22 Lagoon Road or up here, she would want to play backgammon. So she taught me a lot about that, which I never play anymore. Probably because she's not there. The other thing was her incredible, infectious laugh, which would she had a way of projecting. You can hear it for miles. But the best of all, when the families would get together, either Mary Joy or Chris would be at the piano, and we'd sing for hours. I remember that's why I used to go to the gatherings, so we could all sing together, and that was the best memory.
Hi everybody, my name is Tony Covea. I was Margie's first husband and father to Emily and Melanie. And we're all talking about Chris being a partier and a fun time and all of these adventures, but she was very pragmatic as well. And I remember when Emily was born. Chris was there the whole time. Came back to the house with our little bundle of joy.
Gave her her first bath.
Gave her her first bath. Margie and I had no clue on how to raise a child. I think Emily was fussy the first night, and we didn't know what to do. And Chris overheard Emily crying. She was staying in the spare room. So she came marching in and pulled out a binky and put it in Emily's mouth, and that was what quieted her down. But another thing she did when we came home is, I was talking about, do I take tomorrow off? I'd already taken a couple of days off, or, do I go to work? And Chris took me aside and gave me some very good advice. She said, you're the father, you're the head of the household, you're going to work tomorrow. And I've worked about every single day since. Because I did not want to endure her wrath. So, I did see all of the fun times, there were a lot of fun times. There was a lot of partying, but she was also very serious and pragmatic. She had a very serious side to her, and I appreciated that very much. So, thank you all for coming.